How do you want to start?
Let's just start by introducing Greg.
Okay.
A man who goes by many names. The two I know him by are Greg and Pappy. He is my father-in-law. He is a very interesting man. Known him now for what, 10 years or so, Greg?
Yeah,
I think about 10 years.
10 years.
And just really interesting. A lifetime of stories, a lifetime of experiences, done a lot of things, experienced a lot of things. A man who likes to hunt, golf. He is a very avid, what would you call it, a boatsman, a coxsman, if you will?
That too.
Yeah.
But as far as boating's concerned, I race offshore power boats.
He used to race boats, likes to
No
fish.
shit, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's the real deal. He's kind of like the Jersey Shore / Sarasota Shore most interesting man in the world. So, we'll get to know him a little bit more today. Obviously, Alex is late because that's what Alex does. He's probably somewhere taking a feta shower, and he'll get here, and then we'll kind of get everything going. But why don't you give us like the 5-minute version of your life story, Greg? A little bit of where you came from, born, raised, what you've done.
All right.
I know it's going to take more than 5 minutes. Give us the 5-minute snapshot, and then more will kind of unveil itself as we talk.
I will bullet this.
Okay.
All right. I was born in the sweet spot of America, which is Jersey. Just after World War II. I am 45 years old, trapped in a 75-year-old body.
Okay.
I was raised in the Oranges in New Jersey, which back in the early 60s was a garden spot. And I was raised by the people who won World War II. The street that I lived on had multiple nationalities, religions, whatever. But they were all the people who dreamed of the 3-bedroom house with a garage with a car in it, all very middle class, and that's what they achieved. I was raised in a hunting culture. Proud to say I was an Eagle Scout when it mattered, and our troops were run by our fathers. So I can assure you that it turned boys into men, and that was the purpose. Started work when I was 15 as a lifeguard. What else? Scuba dived, continued working as a lifeguard up until I was 21 years old. At that point, I went to, earlier than that, my first year of college was at a military academy, was not one of the service academies, but I learned a lot about discipline, transferred to college in the Midwest, raced an Austin Healey 3000, taught scuba diving, and dealt with the Vietnam War, which at that point in 1969 was turning into a total debacle, but we knew it. And I have very mixed feelings about it. I harbor a great deal of respect for anybody who served in the military because I didn't. So I also have a lot of thoughts about whether or not I should have, but I did not. Prior to that, we went through the Newark Riots of 1967, shook everybody up.
Newark Riots?
The Newark Riots. I lived 1 mile from the city of Newark. Changed my life forever. My family had a business started in 1853. That business went down the tubes in 2 years. I wrote a book, a novel, 4 years ago called Angus, Dabbit, and the Convergence, largely based on life in the 1960s into the 70s, and then fast forward into a detective novel based on offshore powerboat racing, which I did a lot of. But I delved deeply into the Newark Riots, the cause for the inner city problems, and so on and so forth. My family lost their business in 2 years. It was 100 years old because of the Newark Riots.
What was the business?
It was a funeral home. I ended up as the 5th generation. I actually worked with my grandfather and my mother for years, but we then had to move that business, which we did down to South Jersey. That was my primary business for quite a while. Finally, in my mid-40s, I couldn't deal with people in grief anymore, and that is when I blew everything out and I went offshore powerboat racing professionally. Tried to build up a boat company. I didn't do as well at that as I did winning boating races. So I was North American champion 2 times, competed in 4 world championships, never won the worlds. Interestingly enough, I competed in Trump's Grand Prix.
What is that?
Well, that was the world championship out of the building that they just demolished in Atlantic City that was his casino.
He won the swimsuit part, but he did not win the speed part.
So anyway,
I don't know how much of that is bullshit.
So anyway, I did that, and fast forward, I am now 75 years old, and I'm semi-retired because my staff doesn't need me anymore, and I live in Sarasota, Florida.
Okay, I've accomplished nothing. Aja, let's go back to the country of Africa. See you later. I did not know anything about you, besides that Mike has always said that you're a good man. You know, I think part of the reason, and correct me if I'm wrong, part of the reason why we started sitting down is because we were like, you know, hey, everybody needs to calm down a second. And I think that everyone, you know, at least topically, I mean, on the surface, it seems like there's a lot of crisis in here, and there's a lot of division amongst towns, countries, states, crazy shit like that. So I think we decided to sit down, I hope, or at least I did, to bring a little bit of nuance and I don't know, what would it be? A little anesthesia to just be like, all right, chill out. You know, let's learn some shit. Let's talk about some stuff that's important that affects everybody. And, you know, let's be personal a little bit.
Well, I always say, you know, one of my favorite lines is that 99% of the world's problems come from the frustration of uncommunicated and unmet expectations. So, you know, if you and I, Marky, have an issue and I don't communicate to you what that frustration is in our relationship, you don't know that you're violating that area of frustration for me.
Sure.
You know, so most of the world's problems can be solved by communication.
Just having a chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, most people can say, like, I agree to disagree. There's obviously certain things that you're never going to be on the same page with, but having a conversation, at least if I know where you're coming from, it humanizes you.
Right.
You know, and I feel like that's a lot of what we've lost, especially in this country, is the two sides just aren't talking anymore. People aren't communicating.
Well, all sides, not just two.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's becoming problematic.
So, I mean, Aja's literally an immigrant. And I just realized the other day that my wife is an immigrant. I was like, I married a first generation American. And I'm like, oh no, she's legit off the boat.
Out of the crate.
I asked somebody this question last night, and I said, because I had a big awakening in the midst of COVID, and I asked them, I said, was it always like this, or is this different?
Oh, this is so different.
Okay.
I think the point that Micah made, I don't remember what year Tip O'Neill was in the Senate.
He was the Speaker of the House, wasn't he?
Yeah,
at
I
some
think he was
point?
Speaker of the House. But in those days, the politicians, regardless of political party, all lived in the same basic area of Washington, D.C.
I think they still do. Most of them.
But they would socialize. And
Together.
He was known as a big drinker, and everybody made fun of it. But the reality is, when you sit across from a person and you have a drink with them and you get to know them personally, and your kids all go to the same schools, it's very difficult to demonize somebody.
Yeah.
When you have talked to them on that basis. And that's not what's happening today. In my opinion, it's about the political parties turning everybody against each other and making divisions. And that is the direct intent. And it's the wrong way to govern.
And you think that they're making divisions, like so what would be, and this is just, surface, what would be the motivation in your breadth of in scope of experience of paying attention to stuff like this?
Conquer and divide. Because once you drive people apart and you convince them they need more and more government to bring people back together again, it's an orchestrated attempt to put all the leadership at the top. And at this point in time, that's what politicians do. It's not about what's right for the people. It's about consolidating power, and that is their motivation.
But is that for financial, or is that for? I mean, I have my crazy tinfoil hat reasons why.
What is it?
I had my chance to be involved in politics. I ran for mayor in a city that was about 90,000 people. I ran as an independent because it was a nonpartisan form of government.
Okay.
I lost to the Democratic machine, even though it was a nonpartisan form of government, who immediately offered me a position on the on one of the local boards, and I served as finance chairman for one of the biggest municipal utility authorities in the state of New Jersey. And they wanted to move me up. And I made the decision, thank you very much. I'll be happy to do my best, with the authority. But no, I'm not interested in running for public office because I understood fully that I would owe my soul to the devil. I would have to make too many pacts in order to I would not be my own man. And I was not willing to serve is the wrong word. I was not willing to occupy public office on that basis. And I think what's happened, and it was predictable, George Washington said it. He said, first of all, beware of the two-party system. And the second thing he said was, beware of the politicians taking over the elective offices. And it's come to pass, it's exactly right. In most cases, people start on a local level and they have the best intentions. But in order for them to move up, they sell their souls to money and to the political parties, and they owe. And what happens is the people who rise to the top quite often are not the most intelligent. They are not the most accomplished. They are not the ones in touch with what's going on in the country. They are the people with the staying power who are willing to sell out. Now, that's not true in all cases, obviously. Sure. Obviously. Mm-hmm. But there is too much of it.
Being that you have a huge knowledge of the founding father, George Washington, right. Can I ask all of you guys, like, mm-hmm. Aja in particular, get off your phone, man. No, stop looking at OnlyFans.
I was just checking to see if
Alex got back to you.
Yeah.
No, he's down there. No,
what's he doing?
Doesn't matter. So you snooze, you lose, man. You miss the bus. The bus
That's
goes
right.
to Detroit.
That's right.
What growing up in Ghana, what did you think America was?
Ooh,
that's a good question.
That's a great question.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Wow.
All right, let's not praise me. Let's praise the guy who broke his balls to come over here and put everything on the line.
Like, honestly, I thought it was the land of dreams, right? Land of opportunities where, as a kid, I could come in and get the opportunity to be whatever I wanted to be, right? And that's one of the motivations. That's one of the reasons. Because I tell you the truth, right? At age 6 or 7, I knew I didn't want to live in Ghana. And I was telling my parents that, right? I have family.
Well, what? That's a pretty young age to be like, F this place.
I did have family that lived outside Ghana. Most of my family lived outside Ghana. But for some reason, I just knew that, I didn't want to live in Ghana. Because I had bigger dreams as well. I had things that I wanted to do. And America looked like it was the land of opportunities till I stepped in and I'm like, holy moly.
What are something what? Keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, I stepped in and I was like, wow. It's not. So actually, to be honest, I think my perspective on America had to do with like a lot of movies. What I was seeing. What I was seeing on TV, what was being sold.
Right.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I was like, man, that is heavenly. And only to come here and realize that there's huge difference.
It's not Turner and Hooch.
You didn't get a dog at the border.
Yeah.
Well, what was so you're in it, so you've been in America how long? 20 years?
Yeah, about.
So what, in hindsight now, what are some of the things that you think are taken for granted as Americans, as opposed to things that you can't do in Ghana?
And let me say this, throw it in there, because I love that you're asking these questions, because what I've seen a lot over the past 24, 48 hours is images from Cuba, and images from South Africa, and images from all over the world, these places where they've had less free, if we want to call them, forms of government, and they're all taking to the streets fighting for, crying out for freedom and liberty and independence, and they're flying the American flag all over the world right now.
Yeah.
What is going on?
I think America symbolizes what democracy, right? And that's kind of what everybody wants. Everybody wants to be free, right? And America stands for quote unquote freedom, which technically you and I mean, all of us know that is not really the issue. Like that's not the case. And I think the rest of the world sees that, and they all want to be free. They, and I'm saying, I like me as well. I looked at the, movies, like Hollywood, and I'm like, okay, this is America. So that's what the media is selling. But in reality, when you come, you realize that is not the same.
Well, so my observation over the last 48 hours, especially doing my deep dive of American history without knowing the players, but the intention, is I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that you see people in South Africa and Cuba carrying the American flag saying Libertad because of the idea of freedom that I think in the last little bit of time in our history has either eroded, degraded, or in some places disappeared.
Absolutely.
So it's almost like the fiction there's a fiction of America now that was based in the reality of why America started, and we've lost track or the sense of what it is to be American and what it means.
But that's intentional. It's intentional because if you can break down that idea that it doesn't matter what color he is, where he comes from, we're both immigrants to this country. And what holds us together is the American dream. It's the ability to go out there, break your butt, make the money, because we're all judged on how well we do, okay, financially.
Right.
Whether or not you've been successful or not. Some people aren't as successful as others, but that's not the point. They could control their own destiny.
Yeah.
So what you see happening now, in my opinion, I think within the next 4 to 5 years, the handwriting's on the wall. You're going to become either a socialist country or capitalism is going to retrench itself.
Retrench.
I mean, for me, I think, I kind of see where you're going. You and I had that conversation too, I think last week. For me, I personally think like anything to the extreme is bad, right? So you can't have extreme socialism. You can't have extreme capitalism. You need a blend. They're all good, right? And not to quote scriptures or whatever, but it says be fruitful and multiply. So you're not going to be able to, multiply and be fruitful if you don't have a capitalist mindset, right? You need that because you got to be able to grow something. You got to be a good steward. But then it also tells us that we should help, the marginalized, feed the poor, clothe the naked. So how are you going to feed the poor? How are you going to clothe the naked if you don't have a socialist mindset, right? So you got to be able to bring both.
Well, the charity of it. It's all, I've always looked at it because there's an argument to be made as far as like people who really want some sort of socialist government, that if you let capitalism, not capitalism run amok, not capitalism where it's like, hey, the top 7 most wealthy people in this country just increased their wealth by 30% over the last year. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being successful, being able to pay your bills, make sure that future generations of your family are going to be okay. That the capitalism of that is that through donations, nonprofits, charities, stuff like that can be done and not have the government do it because, those famous Reagan words, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
I personally think government's still got to be a part of it, right? Because here's the thing. If you don't have rules, you don't have regulations.
Oh, I don't think anybody's talking about lawlessness.
Yeah. So I think the government.
There are days I want to kill indiscriminately, but.
Yeah, the government still got to be a part of it. But like you said, so true. You need to be able to find that balance, right? Where you are doing all of it. Not equally, but somehow in sync.
Right.
And I think that makes sense.
I think I'm listening to you very carefully.
We can disagree here, Greg. It's okay.
I'm not disagreeing
okay.
with him. I think he's using the wrong term. I don't think by any stretch of the imagination you would be into socialism. I think what you're talking about is benevolent capitalism, where the wealth is brought into the government and can then be dispersed to people who need it. In any worthwhile country, and particularly in this one, we have a moral obligation to take care of people who can't take care of themselves. The problem with socialism is, and there are two prime ministers of England who will tell you the problem. First is Winston Churchill, who said socialism works until it runs out of money. And the second was Margaret Thatcher, who was one tough politician who said socialism can never work because the people working to make the money get tired of giving it to the people who are taking it, and so the people who work stop working. So I hear you saying that capitalism still offers everybody the chance to be their own people, decide what they want to do, and get out there on their own. But part of the moral responsibility is that we take care of the people who can't.
Yeah. I mean, that is exactly what I was trying to say.
Are we seeing, and it concerns me. It is if you listen to the tinfoil hat people, and you take 10% of what they say as truth, it does seem that there is this play to make sure that people rely more on the government in the last year and a half.
Absolutely.
And it seemed like whether it was the perfect storm, whether it was orchestrated, whether it was who the hell knows, it seems like now, make sure you get everybody their $600 a week and all that. And
well, I mean, an entire election was won in Georgia based on that. We talked about this last week.
As of yesterday, it got weird.
Yeah, they're looking into it. But I'm talking about
Fulton County's looking weird.
But I mean, we're talking about the Senate race, and we're talking about, if you want to talk about this overarching, conspiracy theory of turning the entire population of America into leeches on the government teat, so that
what is the logical conclusion of continuing to do that?
Well, and I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier, Greg. It is a need for continual power.
Yeah, it's amassing power.
It's amassing power. It's not about money. It has nothing to do with money. There's more. If there's anything that we've learned in this country in the past year and a half, it's if we want more money, we can just magically print it. It's not even real. Like, my business was just given money. Your business was given money. Everybody's getting checks. There's this, today they announced there's these child whatever. You have kids, you get more money. They're just
now getting money for. I'm gonna have a baby. I'm gonna have a baby next week.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm going to see if we can bring it to conception to term in a week. I hope we can.
I'd like to be there to see that tried. That would be.
Those Russians.
You're going to be exhausted by next.
Well, she's Russian and I'm a rabbit, so it should be fine. It really does. Like it concerns me because it's like
it feels like it's a power grab. Everything over the past year and a half feels like it's a power grab. It just genuinely feels like, if we can contain and withhold power, well, you're good to go. It's no, imagine if you had a company and you had zero competition, you had an entire monopoly on this life-sustaining product that this company has created, and it's you at the top and everybody else at the bottom, and the only way for them to get out of the hamster wheel that they're on is to refuse this life-sustaining product that this company creates. That's the world that we're entering into. When the government is giving you money and you're reliant on that free money coming out every month or every 6 months or however often it is, and you're reliant on that, and then a politician comes along and says, hey, if you're willing to work hard, you can achieve anything in life. You live and die by your own decisions. The majority of people are going to be like, nah, I'd rather have the safety net.
Is it because it's like, show me what to do?
I doubt that.
I was just going to say the same thing. Like I
Go
doubt,
watch out.
Oh, you're.
I doubt that too. I mean, for me, I think the biggest problem is not just
vote for these 2 Democratic senators in Georgia, and you'll have $2,000 in the bank next week.
I mean, that was
that worked like a charm.
That was like stupid politics, right? And
Was it stupid or was it nefarious?
It was brilliant politics.
I mean,
it was dirty, but it was brilliant.
In marketing, yes.
It worked.
In marketing, it was genius. But I mean, because when you're educated, right, you can read into some of these things and you're like, this is bull crap.
You can say bullshit, Aja.
But majority of people, and I don't know if you guys know this, and don't quote me exactly on the numbers, but majority of the United States population is illiterate. Like they read at like 5th grade level, and
that wouldn't surprise me.
So let's make sure we give more money to the failing school districts.
So if you like, your understanding, it's lower than someone in 5th grade, it's easy for me to come and sell you something.
Yes.
Not because they're not intelligent. They just weren't given the skills
They're
to.
not educated.
Yeah.
And
Not that
that's
they're
what
not intelligent.
and
Yeah.
that's what these politicians do. They go. They don't. You think they're coming to you, and you? No, they're pandering to like the guys that don't know anything. They don't read the newspapers. They don't know what's happening, and they just get fed their lies.
And this is why the drive now to socialize this country, to bring socialism to this country, has to be defeated. Can I tell you quickly about Newark, New
You
Jersey?
can tell me everything that you want to tell me.
In 1967, what happened was many people of color from the South moved to the East to try to get jobs, and the majority in Newark were manufacturing jobs. So they moved to Newark, New Jersey. Well, in the interim, the federal government had redlined Newark, New Jersey. What that means was the people in Newark couldn't get federally backed loans. Okay?
What?
Correct. It was redlined. Now,
People of color.
no.
No, everyone.
No.
Just
The
anybody who lived within that-
geographical area.
Was it predominantly black people though?
No.
Okay.
Newark at that
they
time
moved
was
there.
a thriving, they moved there to get jobs.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it was a thriving metropolis loaded with industry. Well, then what the government did was they built major highways north to south, east to west, and they go in two directions. So the people who used to commute every day to go down to Newark and go back home at night, now the federal government gave loans to industry to move out to the suburbs. So now you ended up with the population that came there for jobs unable to go to where the jobs were, and the people in the city couldn't rebuild it because the federal government had redlined it and wouldn't give them loans. So what did the federal government do? They started writing checks to everybody who lived in Newark who didn't have a job, and they built hamster cages and they put them in the hamster cages because they had to have a place to live. That started the welfare population in the inner cities. Today in Newark, New Jersey, you have a mayor by the name of Baraka. I believe he's been there almost 14 years. He happens to be the son of the poet Baraka, who was in the day considered to be an extremely radical poet, black poet. Baraka was a former educator. There are probably more charter schools per square inch in Newark, New Jersey than any other inner city in the country. Not only do these kids come out of those schools with a work ethic, a family ethic, but the school system finds them summer jobs. And one of the courses that they have is how to behave in a business environment. And these kids now are being educated, moving up, and moving out. City of Newark now is attracting tremendous investment because the city's been turned around. So you're fighting this battle today where if you live in Chicago, God forbid, and nobody should have to live in Chicago.
Or Detroit.
Right, or Detroit. You're on the federal dole and you're expected to just live there and keep your mouth shut and go to inefficient schools and get shot up, and that's okay. So that's not the way to live. And it pains me deeply when federal government now wants to mandate what's going to be taught in your public schools and to teach children that there's a difference in ability between races, which is the biggest crock of bullshit you could ever teach a child. Well, in Newark, New Jersey, they're doing it right. The charter schools are teaching you can be anybody you want to be. There is no glass ceiling.
Explain to everybody real quick what because as a former, before I reached the age of reason, to use a George Carlin thing about being a liberal, I thought charter schools were a bad thing. I thought it was like, I'm like, oh, these are just corporations trying to, just suck money off of people, and they're really not going to get a good education. And then I looked into charter schools and I was like, can you explain the difference between charter schools and public schools?
Yeah, charter schools have a right to teach a curriculum that is based on education, not based on socializing children. It teaches what a school should teach: reading, writing, arithmetic, science, actual history, to get that child up and out. The reason the federal government does not want charter schools to succeed is because they cannot indoctrinate your children if your children do not go to public school.
Would you guys be okay if I play a clip real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it took me forever to set it up. And I just want you to, I want to set this up for you guys real quick. I don't know how many people are familiar here with Richard Dreyfuss.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I remember 14, 15 years ago, I was watching Real Time with Bill Maher. I was a big fan of Real Time with Bill Maher. And for the first time that I watched it, the entire panel just shut up and let Bill Maher, and let,
You can't stand Bill Maher?
He's coming around.
I think he's too liberal.
There's such a thing. But this really struck me, and it's always struck me, and it's been so hard for me to find this clip. And I finally found like a little piece of it, but I would love to play the whole thing. I'm going to play it right here.
Okay.
That it is okay.
I'm gonna rewind.
You can actually learn the constancy of curiosity and the constancy of outrage. You can learn that it is okay to keep asking the questions and to be dissenters. And if you're not taught it, then you don't know it. But we owe ourselves and the United States that we will pass off to our children to relearn the tools of reason, logic, clarity, dissent, civility, and debate. And those things are the nonpartisan basis of democracy, and without them, you can kiss this thing goodbye. And it is up to us.
I just want to pause that for a quick second. What do you, so far, nobody disagrees?
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Spot on.
Okay. Let's continue. Then we'll just do a whole Tom McDonald album. Hold on.
It is up to us. It wasn't because of a conspiracy that this left. It was thoughtlessness. And what you have to do is get it back. And what happens now in this partisan addicted country of ours is that Democrats are afraid that if they send their kids to civics classes, they might not come back Democrats. And Republicans are afraid their kids won't come back Republicans. But civics, the expertise needed to understand Western Enlightenment and civil liberties is not something you're born with. You have to learn it. And we teach our kids what we want them to know, and we don't teach them what we don't want them to know. And that's not a conspiracy, that's human nature.
So I'm going to keep going, but still everybody so far so good?
Perfect.
Okay. Now remember, this is 15 years ago. For this whole generation that think life happens tomorrow and that's it.
And we have to remember that unless we teach the ideas that make America a miracle in government, a miracle that everyone knows is a miracle, unless we teach what that means, then it will go away in your kid's lifetime. And we will be a fable. We will be a tale told about this place that used to stand up for blah, blah, blah. You have to teach it. You have to find the time and creativity to teach it in school. And if you don't, then you will lose it to fundamentalists of any stripe. You will lose it to stupidity. You will lose it to the darkness. And what this country represents is a tiny twinkle of light in a history of oppression and darkness and cruelty. And if it lasts for more than our lifetime or our kids' lifetime, it is only due to the fact that we put some effort into teaching what it is, the ideas of America, the idea of opportunity, mobility, of freedom of thought, freedom of assembly. And if you don't teach it, it'll go away. And in the middle of the night when the towers fall, we will not say, what am I responsible for? We will say, tell us what to do. Mm-hmm. And remember, democracy in any form is only 200 or 300 years old.
And Bill Maher has to argue with him real quick.
Kingship is 10,000.
It goes back to Athens.
No, I mean in practice, in the way we live with each other. In the practice.
Well, they practiced it in ancient Greece.
And then it went away for 2,000 years.
2,000 years.
And what we've had is monarchy and a theocracy and a kind of God tells the king and the king tells us. And the idea of being personally responsible for your government is a twinkle. It's only as old as, since Victoria's death. And we have to support it, or we will else instinctively react as we have for 10,000 years. Tell us what to do, and we'll chuck these liberties the moment the next terrorist horror happens.
Okay. That's well said.
What do you think of that?
I think he's spot on. And what he's saying, and Mark chose to nitpick, the Age of Enlightenment, which happened in the early 1700s, was the first time that Europe and what became the United States and England went from rule by monarch and church to the value of the individual. Happens to coincide with the organization of which three of us are members,
Yes.
okay, which would happen to be the Freemasons. And you can't convince me that the Freemasons aren't the directly responsible for creating this country, because that Age of Enlightenment produced the idea that the worth of the individual surpasses that of the people who are leading them. Interestingly enough, Frederick the Great of Prussia happened to be the Grand Master of Masons for probably the greatest military empire that ever existed, which was Prussia. And he gave up the throne. Imagine that. He gave up the rights of the throne so the common man could participate in his government. So the United States was founded directly on the principles that the individual is the one who hires the government. And the great problem right now is too many people are willing to give up their rights to be told by government how to live their lives.
Can you argue with that?
No, not really.
But
not really. But I think it's not just the government, right? Because you also have to understand that corporations are in bed.
Can you put a pin in that for 1 second?
Yeah.
Who do you think the government goes and has dinner with?
The corporations.
Yeah. So it's not they're not so far removed from each other.
They're not. But
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like, it's both, right? But because like a lot of times, like, when you say government, especially like the people that are not educated, right, just looks at the government, and they don't look at the corporations as well, because they can't fathom, they can't understand it. They don't have that logic, the reason. But you have to talk kind of like talk about them in tandem, together. Like, the government is in bed with corporations. Basically, that's what it is. And they are the ones that are screwing the people.
But it's so you lived in Newark, right?
Well, I lived just outside of it, yes.
Yeah. And you saw what happened there in the late 60s.
Firsthand, affected me greatly.
Yes. So it's not like you're saying like, oh, I saw it on the news, you were boots on the ground, you were there.
I was there.
So when it comes to let's say the example of they are in cahoots, right? In Newark, were the people in power and the people who were the wealthy hanging out
Have you ever seen
in the media?
Have you ever seen The Sopranos?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, every scene in the introduction to The Sopranos is within a half a mile of my house. I know every house front they showed in the introduction to The Sopranos. Those players absolutely were my neighbors. Tony Soprano was patterned after Boiardo, who lived in Livingston, who had a crematory in his backyard to dispose of mob people. Now, what happened in Newark was the
Did not know that.
Yep. The last white mayor of Newark happened to be a World War II highly decorated Italian American. And at that point, Newark was on a downward trajectory. All the things I had spoken about before were happening.
Right.
The mob came in collusion with government, basically finished off the carcass that became Newark. There was nothing left. They picked it clean. And that was the reason for the inner city riots. They picked the city clean.
Now, when you say pick the city clean,
Financially picked it clean. So there was no
Sounds
money.
familiar.
Yep.
it sounds near.
Like, and when you say near, like
Distance.
right here.
Yeah.
So what you had was, these are business people. Don't fool yourself into thinking that those mob figures at that point in time were not business people, because they were. Everything you saw on The Sopranos was about making money.
Yeah, it wasn't about all crime. It was about
Making money.
It was about making money.
And that's exactly what they did in the city
Right.
of Newark. And they had the politicians in Newark wired where they could go in and they could get what they wanted, and they did. And then when the city went south, they all left. So yeah, that's what happened.
And so far, 40 years later, it's finally shedding some hope.
It's being brought back because of a black mayor who taught family values and educated children and showed them the way out. And they don't stand for crime.
It's very different than San Francisco, where you're allowed to commit any crime under what, $900,
I think it was
and they won't even
$950.
prosecute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, really?
You didn't know that, Aja?
Oh, yeah, you nuts.
Oh yeah, they're walking in.
Oh, so you remember last week I was talking about one of my first incidents in San Francisco, I peed.
Yeah. Now you can walk into a Walgreens or a Target and steal less than $990 or something, $950.
Right. It's not, I think it's
And
900.
not only will they not stop you, they will not prosecute you.
That is nuts.
Yeah, you could walk out with a fucking Xbox.
What are we doing in this world?
But
That
okay,
is-
now answer this. Now think about this
good
question, right? Who is the representative of San Francisco
I
in the
forgot-
federal government?
I forgot his name.
Nope, it's a she.
I mean, wait.
Mm-hmm. Nancy.
Fucking.
Pelosi.
You mean in okay?
That's her
Oh,
district.
but there's another one.
In
But there's
Congress?
another one.
Who?
K.H.
Wasn't she in there in San Francisco?
She was the Attorney General.
Oh, Kamala.
Kamala
For-
Harris.
Kamala.
But that was like,
Now-
the entire state of California.
No. She
She started in San Francisco.
correct.
Okay.
You know, and then I remember living in California. I was living in California, and I can't tell you how many people were she's a piece of shit. And why would they say she was a piece of shit? Because it was adversely affecting people of
Minority.
color,
Yeah.
because she wouldn't drop $10 to make sure they can get out of prison because their DNA tests would prove that they didn't commit the crime. She wanted to keep her numbers up. The first time she came into the limelight was, of all fucking people, was who's that? Montel Williams.
Yeah, she was having an affair with
But
Montel Williams.
She was. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
He brought her on red carpets.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's where Kamala. That was her intro.
Ooh.
And Montel at the time had a pretty successful show.
Yeah, he was rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
I mean, but
I'm just saying, it's like this shit has been going on for decades with crazy people.
I get it, and I hear all that, right? But the thing that rings in my head, and being minority, being black, it's like
You're what?
it's like I think so. I'm not basically dismissing what she did, or all the stupid laws that she.
If I said there was
she
somebody who was the attorney general,
she was working for the white man. She was working for the white man.
Ooh.
nah.
True.
No. Let me see this. Wait, hold on, Aja. Hold on.
No, I'm being honest. I'm being honest, right? I'm being honest for real. Like,
Yeah. Follow through with that.
So for me, like every single time, it probably doesn't affect you guys, right? But every single time I'm doing something, I'm always thinking, what are they thinking of me? Right. So
I think that too, and I'm just insecure.
But that's more like, I mean, you might think that, but it's like there's this like white privilege.
I don't believe in that, man.
I do.
Here, let me tell you this way. Can I explain it this way?
I did experience it. I have experienced it, right?
You've experienced white privilege?
No, I mean,
Is it those white pants you're wearing today? Is that why?
Is it after Labor Day, Aja?
You know what? That's why I had to wear white pants. I was just kidding.
So I'll give you a little perspective, right? And this is not to say that shitty people don't exist, right? But growing up around here, there was Italians, Polish, Irish, Germans, right? The racism all these people experienced was insane around here. The Irish hated the Italians hated the Polish. I don't think there's a difference. I don't think there's a difference at all. Just because here's the thing. If I what I just said about Kamala Harris, right? let's take out the fact that she's the Attorney General of California. Let's take out the fact that she's a black woman, right? Hey, there's an Attorney General in a state who's making sure that people of color are not getting out because she won't make sure that they're found, that their innocence is proven. Forget everything about race, money, everything. There's a person doing a shitty thing. It has nothing to do with race.
And that is wrong, right? And that is, for me, yes, that is wrong.
But me saying that the first time brought you to her, she's working for the white man.
Because like obviously, like, you know, I thought of it, right? And I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, hey,
But that's where your brain first went.
But there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that.
Which is kind of true.
No, there's a reason for that. You've been fed that. You've been fed that. And please, I agree with what you're saying. You and I have not had I don't think a disagreement since we started.
All right, made it an hour.
but that's what's happening today. Our kids are being taught that everything is based on racial issues when they aren't. You know, I read about gun crime, and then I say to myself, I wish they would separate out how many kids are getting killed in the inner city by people of their own color from what the actual gun crime is in this nation. They do.
I don't have the numbers, but they do.
It's aggressively
it's
disproportionate.
Staggering. It's like 94% of the shootings in this country take place in 3 cities. 94%. I could be off by a
Chicago,
percent,
Baltimore,
by
New
a
Orleans.
percent or two, right? But it's in that range, and this is black against black, because there's a certain percentage of the world's population that will always be psychopaths or sociopaths who look at everybody else as their victim. It just so happens that these kids caught in the inner city who aren't shown a way out figure, well, my way is through drugs, and they don't care. Who are they going to pick on? They're going to pick on their neighbors.
And they're not given opportunity. They're not given the education. They're not giving the tools that you need to get out. And now here's the other thing too.
So that's what I was like, you know, trying to talk about.
But I know, but see, the problem is like I have stopped seeing race. I have started seeing kindness.
I think that's wrong too. You should be able to see race, right?
I don't think so. I think if I rip all your skin off, you look just as ugly as me with my skin ripped off.
The reason I'm saying you should be able to see race.
But he still probably has a bigger penis because he's black.
It's hefty. It's hefty. The Scottish throw it in tournaments.
You guys are nuts. I mean, the reason I'm saying
I'm Scottish. Watch it.
Well, then you throw his penis in
I'm not
tournaments.
picking it up. No,
Well,
that ain't happening.
He has a bad that's because the doctor told you not to lift anything heavy.
Listen, if you're trying to procreate a child the next week, you might want to talk to
I'm going
him.
to talk to Aja. Aja can do it while my wife's still home and he's here.
Oh, man.
See these. So conversations like this, right? We're told they're bad to have. And I don't think that they're bad to have, because it at least comes to an understanding of like, yeah, we agree to disagree, but maybe there's some common ground there to be like, an asshole's an asshole. It doesn't matter. And a kind person's a kind person. It doesn't matter.
You got to be able to tell your story.
Yeah.
You can and you should, absolutely. But here's the thing. If in Ghana, right, when you were a child and they came to you and they said, and you've never met a white person, they say, oh, all white people are evil and they're monsters and they're racist and they're terrible and they will destroy you and they will eat your babies, which is kind of what they did in like Japan and shit. They said that the Americans would eat your would eat your babies, right?
They're doing it right now.
I mean, that's basically what they did in Africa.
Is that
scramble for Africa? So I don't know if
but you've never experienced it. You've never met a white person, and I'm saying in this example, right? I'm not saying that that's your experience or your lived-in experience. I'm saying in this example, you've never met anybody like that. You know, I watched a video last week of a kid in Africa meeting a white person for the first time. It was fascinating just to watch it because they were terrified.
I remember the day that my son realized that there was a difference between black people and white people. It was hilarious. So, you know, he's played basketball his whole life. A bunch of his friends are black. Just playing basketball and being a part of the Scranton School District, there's just a great melting pot of ethnicities and races and backgrounds. So, you know, a lot of his friends are, you know, from all over the place, you know, and one day we were up at the pool, for like one hot minute. We were members at Glen Oak Country Club, and we're up.
That's white privilege, dude.
Well, hold on. This guy.
Can he join?
Yeah.
Would you sponsor him?
Yeah.
There you
No,
are.
I'm not a member anymore. But anyway, so I'm in the pool.
He's like, fuck these
He popped
bougie
out.
bastards.
Yeah, I'm in the pool, and the pool's packed. Okay, and so I'm in the pool, and I'm throwing a football back and forth with my son Phoenix, and we're throwing it back and forth. And he's like, "Dad, throw it to my friend over there." And I was like, "Who's your friend?" He's like, "The kid in the blue goggles." And there's probably 75 kids in this pool. And I'm like, I can't find it. It's like, where's Waldo? And I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm looking, and I don't see blue goggles. And then all of a sudden, I see a little black head pop up out of the water with blue goggles, and I'm like, Phoenix, you mean the one black kid in the swimming pool? He goes, yeah, the one with blue goggles.
See, but that's how it needs to be looked at.
Like he couldn't even, that didn't factor. My kid, and just interesting, they thought that Lauren and I were in an, why am I blanking on the word? An
Cult?
interracial relationship up until very recently, because I was always so pale and she was always so tan. She's Greek. We, established this last week, and for them, they just, that was just a normal part of their world, and they just never saw it. And, for me, it kind of got me thinking along those roads. And, and I've thought about this a lot with white privilege, because whether or not something is disagreeable to me at first, when I first hear it, I want to entertain the idea and see what's going on there. And I put a lot of thought into it. And, kind of where I came to with it was, I look at white privilege the same way that I look at, feminism over the years. And I'm probably about to get in so much trouble, but here we are.
Do you want more bourbon first?
No, that's the last thing we need. And we're just getting into
All
it.
right. Do you need anything? Are you good?
I'm good.
Okay. You want water or ice or?
I could use water.
Okay, Aja,
You know,
you good?
Let's take a break and get some water, and then I'm gonna stick my head into this hornet's
Why
nest.
don't you keep going with that?
Keep going. I'll get the
Okay.
water.
Mm-hmm.
I'm capable of that.
All right,
Oh,
go
that
get us
thing
some
is
water.
so cold.
If he says anything out of line, I'll
He'll
kick his ass
kick,
for you. all
kick
right?
me under the table.
All right.
I'm not a cop. You guys say whatever you want to say.
That thing looks so cold.
Aja, you don't want
It's
water?
so
No, I'm
nice.
good. I got water.
I want water.
Greg, you want water? Okay.
That'd be great.
So, I mean, and I've had to think long and hard about this, and I could be dead wrong, but, when it comes to feminism, rightfully so, women have fought for, the right to vote, the right for equality in many ways, and that's all good and well. But I don't remember them fighting for equality when it came to signing up for the draft. I don't remember them fighting for equality when it came to the rules that we put on, when the Titanic is sinking, who stays behind and who gets to go on the lifeboat. It seems to be a very selective privilege that we're fighting for. Thank you for the waters. He has one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm the white one.
I felt guilty.
And so and listen, and I'll be the first one to say, like, I get where you're coming from, and I understand there are certain, I'll be the first one to say there are certain things in this country that there is white privilege. There's just no two ways about it. There is one of those.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Well, no, because there's also certain things that have people of color privilege.
Yeah, that's what.
It's just there's no two ways about it. I mean, it just is what it is.
I thought you were racist.
No, and that is why I was saying, when you said, "Oh, I don't see race," I'm like, no, you got to be able to see race. Right? Because is diversity. It's beautiful. You got to be able to see race.
Yes. And now you're right down. You've synthesized everything right down to a singular point. What is it in this country that takes this huge melting pot and makes us all Americans? What is it?
It's an idea. It's an idea and a belief
Diversity.
structure.
It's a structure based on the personal freedoms we have and the right for everybody to improve their lives and the lives of their family through hard work.
Yep.
But with it comes responsibility, because not everybody's going to achieve the same level. So the responsibility of government is to provide. Okay,
To
but
bring that
you're still
stability.
not a socialist.
No, I'm not.
You're
So
still
I'm
not a
not. I'm not a big. So remember, was it?
This
was
is
it
great,
last
Aja.
week? Was it last week? I was telling you.
I kind of want a
Micah,
gummy bear now.
Was it last week? I was telling you that in class I was talking about this thing where I said, for me, this is my perfect philosophy, right? It's where you are taking socialism and capitalism and marrying them, bringing them together. And I remember I said, what did I call it? I said
I think he called it hyper
I said
communism.
And my
Hyper communism?
Yeah.
Hyper.
and
ADD communism.
and my teacher was like, what? But after I explained it.
Well, explain it real
after
quick.
I explained
Explain it for Greg.
They understood.
You lost me. Explain it.
they understood it, right? So here's the thing, and kind of going back to what I talked about, like capitalism is good because we are supposed to be fruitful and multiply. You're supposed to grow stuff. So it is good. But then we are also supposed to take care of one another, right? Like I am my brother's keeper.
To a degree.
Oh, that's the furthest thing from communism in the world.
No. So what I'm saying, and now
Maybe we need to define it.
Wait, no, but what now?
Yeah.
You look at the craze that is happening in this world now too, right? Where it's all about corporate social responsibility, and if this company,
Dude, they're just placating so you can buy more shit.
So that is, but I know that, but that's the thing. Like, oh, so if this company doesn't align with this value, then I'm not gonna do this, right? So I'm thinking like we live in this woke culture where everybody want to be woke, right? So I'm thinking about it. Listen, this is how we are made. We are made to both like be able to do things, to multiply, to grow things, right? Every individual having the freedom and the opportunities to do stuff. And then we are also created to be that person. Like if Micah needs help, if you need help, if Greg needs help, I could provide that help.
If I don't agree to a degree, because the only reason you're going to be able to help anybody is because you're a capitalist. The only reason you're going to be able to help Micah is because you either have the time or the money.
And I did not disagree with that. But I said, listen carefully. I said you need to find a way to marry the two.
I love all the dogs in the world.
You can't have the extreme. And capitalism is very extreme because like we become so individual focused, right? It's the corporations, especially it's the corporations that benefit. So they create all these things. They make all the money. They make all the loss. They most of them are in bed with the government, right?
I don't know where the win is here for you.
Well, let me try and come at it this angle, because I think where there's a disconnect is we're muddying the waters between governmental responsibility.
Overcomplicating it.
Well, no, we're muddying the waters between the government's responsibility and the personal responsibility,
Which are two separate things.
Two very different things. I mean, I think if you look at personal responsibility, I believe very strongly in a socialist way of living on a personal level. Me, if you need help, I give it to you. And I hope you would do the same in return.
I would, Bobby.
Thank you, Bobby. Like I believe very much. I mean, if you look, and I've said this before, and people have gotten very angry, but I believe very strongly in it. You look at, to use the biblical reference, you look at the early church and what the apostles laid out. Is take care of the poor, take care of the widow. It was a very socialist mindset. It was a very we all share, you give of your excess. It was a very communal socialist way of living.
Have you guys heard of the economic philosophy called social business?
I'm not familiar.
All right, so we could Google that later. But there's this guy, right?
DuckDuckGo, man. Don't trust Google.
No, I mean, but there's this guy. I don't know if it's Harvard or MIT educated professor.
That means nothing.
I forget where he comes from.
Harvard, the school that doesn't allow Asians in because they're not personable.
He's like, I think he's from like.
That's true.
I think he's from like Bangladesh or something like that. His name is Mohammed Yunus.
I've heard that.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Mohammed Yunus. He started socialism. I mean, social entrepreneur or whatever it's called, social business.
What's the tenets of it?
But there's a major difference. I'm listening to you and I'm gaining respect every time you talk. You're not talking about socialism.
No, I'm not talking about socialism.
You're talking about social responsibility.
And
then don't ever use the word communism or communist with your beliefs, because that's the furthest thing from what you're talking about.
And you're going to lose people when you're trying to explain it.
And I know that. That's like the first time, like, when I said that, everybody was like, whoa. And I was
my butt shut.
And I was trying to bring people. You're crazy. I was trying to bring
yes,
people,
I am.
I was trying to bring people to understand that, right? And because I remember I was having this same conversation at the University of Scranton Board of Governors meeting or whatever, and I was there and I was talking about these same things. And that was when this lady, her name is, I can't remember. Anyway,
just say lady.
Her, and she said to me, she goes, "That is called social business." And honestly, like I didn't even know what it was. And she was like, "I'm going to get you a book."
Yeah, but there's nothing in the world wrong with social business. There's nothing wrong with
absolutely.
But when it comes to a governmental structure, here's what you have to boil it down to at the end of the day. When it comes to the government, whether it be local, federal, county, state, doesn't matter. Socialism is a type of living or organization when it comes to, people or peoples, and it's based on a code of morality. Socialism is point blank based on a code of morality. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. So
On the surface.
well, no, I have a certain set of morality.
Thank you.
I have a certain set of morality on a personal level. Okay. So if you come to me and say, Micah, I need help for this, and it's something that I morally believe in, I'm going to help you. But if you come to me and say, I want money for XYZ, and it's something I don't morally believe in, I'm not going to help you.
There's also things that I morally believe in that I can't help you with.
Right. But I'm saying if I have the ability to. So now let's put that into a governmental structure. And this is why so many people get frustrated. Okay. Let's say, because we do have a Second Amendment right to own firearms in this country, let's say the government said, you know what, because we do that, because we believe in militias, we want to have a strong defense, we want to have, secure borders, all of the above, blah, 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 blah. We're going to take a certain amount of the government's budget this year, and we are going to buy and give a handgun and an AR-15 to every citizen over the age of 18 in order for the defense, whatever, of the country. Well, if you're somebody who's morally against firearms, that's going to be a problem. It's no different than the argument that other people have made, talking about, abortions being healthcare. Okay. Well, some people are morally against abortions. That's why they don't want it. That's why the healthcare debate is such a hot topic. It's not because people want certain people to have good healthcare or other, bad healthcare. It's because you don't smoke, do you? Cigars, cigarettes, marijuana, weed, nothing. Okay.
Oh my God, you're so pure.
I did.
But let me ask you a question, okay, Aja? I've known you long enough to know. Okay, you probably don't drink a ton. You drink every now and then, but you don't drink a ton. You don't smoke. You eat well. You work out. You do all those things. Do you want to be paying for the health care of the person that's going through the McDonald's drive-through twice a day, and they don't ever work out?
And that's not color.
Well, no, it's typically white people.
I don't know.
Because drive through the South. I drove to drive back and forth to Sarasota on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, it's not about color.
Yeah.
By
but
any
so that's
stretch.
the thing. And so, when you talk about any type of social based governmental structure and the whole, being responsible for the whole, well, then the natural end game of that type of governmental structure is now the structure can tell you how to live your life.
Exactly right.
If the end game is we want everybody to have health care, well, we don't have enough money to pay for everybody to go to McDonald's every day and to smoke cigarettes and do this. So now we're taxing, or we're outlawing, or we're telling people they have to live their lives a certain way. And so now the government has a say in how you live your life. So, when it comes to socialism, I don't think, using that term, it's become such a hot button term. It's not a bad term. It's a good way to live your life on a personal level. It's good to be socially conscious. It's good to run your business in a socially conscious way. Now, there's going to be a natural outcome of that, though. When I run my business in a naturally socially conscious way, we're going to give to charity, but I can't give to every charity. I can't afford to.
You don't have to. You don't have to. But you're giving it to charity, right?
But when it comes to the government can't pick and choose which charities it's going to back, because we're all equal citizens under the law. We're all sons and daughters of America. So, in order for a country to run effectively, it can't babysit its citizens. The citizens have to be responsible for itself. And to go back to it, JFK, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And we've just lost that way.
Well, the major problem here is that when this country was founded, states' rights were what was important.
Yeah,
the only reason they formed a federal government was so that they would have a common defense.
Yeah.
And so we lived under the laws of Confederacy. Defense.
Just one thing, common defense.
Common defense.
That's all it was there for.
We lived under the rules of the Confederacy, and then 6 years later they decided, well, we need a little bit more than that. So that was the start of the watering down of states' rights and the increasing influence of the federal government, which has risen exponentially since 1787 and keeps going up, because every time government puts its finger on another issue, it's taking away your personal right to make decisions. As far as businesses are concerned, I was president of a chamber of commerce, a rather large chamber of commerce, all small business. Major topic of conversation was how we're getting screwed by government right and left, whether it's state or whether it's federal. And we supported a number of charities, and I got a call the other day. I happen to serve the Asian Indian community. Very close with the Asian Indian community.
I don't think you touched on what you do now.
I own the Asian Indian funeral service. I will serve over 400 families this year just in New Jersey, and I am probably the biggest shipper of human remains from the United States back to Asia of anybody else in the country. So those are.
That's a little mind blowing.
And I'm a white Scottish old man. So the point.
So how did you get into that?
Well, we can get back into that. Let me finish this point though. So the point is, federal government's taken over more and more and more of your individual rights, and now it's to the point where they can control whether or not you have an abortion through the Medicaid programs they want to shove down your throat on a national level. That's best left to the individual. Also, a lot of decisions are best left to the states because not one size fits all. California's in the process of disintegrating. Okay, so their needs are entirely different than another state that's being run very well. So you've got large industry at the top, the corporations that are now in bed with federal government. They're controlling what you think, what you hear, what you see.
And they are in bed with like even the state government too.
Absolutely.
It's not just the
And local.
Absolutely. But then you've got the rest of the 99% of the business in this country, which are responsible individuals and corporations who are your hometown people.
Yeah, the startups, like the Micah.
But what are they looking to do? They're looking to get rid of the small businesses. They're looking to get rid of the small businesses, so you only rely on the ones at the top. I mean, if you think about it this way, right?
The Chamber of Commerce is part of it too. Sorry, I mean, I don't know about your Chamber of Commerce, but I can't stand the Chamber of Commerce in Spain.
Well, I plead ignorance here because I don't know.
It seems like America was founded for some of the same shit that's happening right now.
Yes.
That we as Americans are going through. And it's really disconcerting to me that no one takes a breath and actually goes, hey, what was it's like everyone wonders why they were born. What's their purpose? What is this? But nobody goes, why is the country where I live in? Spin a fucking globe. You tell me, you point to a place that's better than here. Point.
Well, it's amazing.
You can't do it.
Because, people from all over the world want to come here just like Aja. And yet all of those people in America, some born here, some not, who will talk about how it's the worst place on earth and racist and criminal and horrible. You don't see them emigrating anywhere. It's still we have our problems, and and we've talked about this before. Like
every family does.
We have immense amount of problems. We've had problems. It was not perfect when it started, and it's not perfect now. But it was the best idea for creating a more perfect union.
And the fact that backs up exactly what you are saying is there are 27 amendments to the Constitution.
We can fix it if
and
it's broken.
And those 27 amendments say we change it as we go along.
Yep.
And we have. But what's going on now is an attempt to subvert the Constitution of the United States. And I will argue that with anybody. It's an attempt to consolidate all the power at the top. And now you're into thought control.
That's the scariest thing for me.
Yeah, now you're into thought control because they are controlling the information that you are allowed to read. And don't believe for a second all this nonsense by the federal government. Oh, we're going to go after Google. We're going to go after Apple. Oh, we're going to make sure they publish the content. Bullshit. They want to control the content. You go read the novel 1984.
Orwell. Think about it, man. That's the thing that really struck me. The thing that really struck me as I crushed these Haribo gummy bears. The idea of thought.
You need to keep up your energy.
It's just fat sugar. I'm not eating anymore. I was about to eat more. Like
I was gonna say, why are you putting more in your mouth?
I thought
you stopped trying to talk and think.
I thought I was at a Marvel movie. That is the scariest thing to me. So if you look at the First Amendment, right, freedom of speech. The Second Amendment is like no one can tell you what to think, what to say. Not hurting anybody.
Who to talk to,
how to talk to them. The Second Amendment was for the government can't tell you and your neighbor can't tell you. That's the First Amendment. The very first one. The one that you're like, you know, when you have an idea, your first thought, that's the most important one. The second one was in case your neighbor told you can't do that. Or your government.
Click clack.
That's why it was there. The thing, once you take away the first, the rest of them don't fucking matter.
That's right.
Because you have now lost your ability to think for yourself, to be objective, to say, hey, you know, I don't think all Middle Eastern people are terrorists, you know, or I don't think all Irish are drunk, or I don't think all Italians punch their girlfriends. You know, those are the things that, like, once you walk and meet people and expand your sphere of influence, you start to realize, hey man, a lot of the shit that I've been told was bullshit. And I'm able to make my own judgment. And what really pisses me off right now is that they're making sure that everyone, everywhere you turn, minus the deep dark pockets of the internet, are telling you that you're different. You need to dislike these people because they're a threat. You know, Biden's talking about civil war. Why do you keep talking about civil war, Joe Biden? It's like manifest destiny.
But why aren't people reading? You know, why aren't people?
Because they're not educated.
Hey, so you know, it just goes back to what I
It's not.
said
But why say, hey, you're a lost cause? Go out and maybe we're there to educate them. Maybe we're just a little spark to make somebody go, hey man, this all might be bullshit. You know, maybe I don't hate my neighbor.
People got to start telling their stories. It matters. You know, knowing me, knowing you guys and everything, it makes a big difference.
Do you want a gummy bear?
Can I, I mean, we've been going at this for a while. Can I ask you one question? I mean, you and I have talked about a lot of things over the years.
You pointing at me?
Yeah, I'm pointing at you.
You wanna talk to me?
Yeah, I'll talk to you.
He's from Newark, man.
Do you have the gun mug? No. Okay, so this is the talking gun mug.
Wait a minute, you got a gun?
That thing.
I don't have a gun. What is it you want me to do?
Okay, so here's my question, and this is actually something that for me over the past couple of years is like really kicked in more and more, and it's something I've kind of thought through over the past like 18 years, but you know, over the past few years, it's really.
Do you love him?
Who is your favorite
I
kid?
do love his mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
Good for you, buddy.
She's good people. But you mentioned it earlier when you first kind of were introducing yourself, and you talked
I do love him.
about Vietnam and how you didn't serve.
Yeah.
You know, and you said you had thoughts on that, you know, either way. And it's something that I've kind of dealt with over the years, you know, especially very lately, as like my generation is kind of now finishing up their service, those that served at an extreme level, and now they're kind of starting to publicly talk about it. So, you know, for me, I go back to when I was, I just turned 19, and it was a beautiful Tuesday morning. Didn't really have a lot of direction in life, just knew I wanted to, you know, hang out with girls and play a little bit of soccer and all that fun stuff. And, you know, I go into like the main area of the college I was at, and everybody's huddled around the TV, and, you know, it was 9/11, and, you know, you see everything that happened that morning, and, you know, you kind of get through the shock of that day, and you know, you make some phone calls and make sure everybody's okay. And, you know, the next day I had a conversation with an Army recruiter, and, you know, that Wednesday, and, you know, I put a lot of time and thought into it, and, you know, I was still on the fence. I can't say one way or another what I was going to do. I was leaning more so to enlisting than not. And then that Friday I went to soccer practice and blew out my knee. You know, multiple surgeries later, you know, obviously at that point the Army didn't want me, and that kind of that made the decision for me. And, you know, and it was always something I kind of regretted. It really over the past couple of years, something I, you know, even more so regretted. And I think part of that might be just me hitting the age where, you know, it's the window of opportunity is gone. I couldn't even be a part of it if I wanted to at this point. But, you know, it's always kind of one of those things I've always kind of regretted. But at the same time, too, I look at what has happened to so many people out of my generation, you know, the lives lost, the limbs lost, the years, the time, the mental health, the toll that it's taken. You know, and there's a part of me that regrets it. And honestly, I'll be real honest with you. There's a part of me that feels like I dodged a bullet.
Thank you. I feel a sense of guilt because I had fraternity brothers and college brothers who went, some who did not come back, some who came back maimed, some who came back really mentally messed up. The reason that I didn't go was because of my father. My father served in World War II. He was too old to go overseas, so he served in Florida, where he was a supply sergeant, and he got wounded. Somebody put a 45 down the desk, and it went through his hand. And he was in the Air Force dance band, and he could no longer play bass.
Oh.
His brother, my uncle, led the pack trains up Montecasino Mountain. If you know nothing about World War II, read about Montecasino. They had to take the Abbey at the top. The Germans held it. My uncle led the pack trains of ammunition up Montecasino while the infantry stayed behind the rocks.
Oh, it's insane.
He was untouched. So when it became obvious I was going to graduate college, and it was in doubt there for a while, but when it became obvious I was going to graduate, I came home, and my father asked me what I thought about what was going on in Vietnam, and I told him. And I didn't ask. He said, do whatever you need to do to stay out. And at that point in time, the handwriting was on the wall. It was 1969.
They were doing the draft too, weren't they?
Yeah, I was number 47.
Oh, shit.
I would have been gone. So I taught high school in Janesville, Wisconsin, got a deferment to teach. I then went back to school and I got another deferment. And at that point in time, the war then wound down, and that was the end of it.
So that's how you got out of it?
That's how I got out of it. But it wasn't, I actually had friends of mine who I'd lifeguarded with who were a little bit older, who were in the Navy, and they showed up on campus and wanted me to apply to officer candidate school and then come in with them. And at that time, they were in UDT, which became the Navy SEALs. So I was a collegiate swimmer. So I went to Navy OCS, great story, to take the OCS test. Jerk that I am, I put on the test. I wanted flight. I thought it'd be cool to be a pilot. No way in hell was I going to pass the Navy OCS test to become a pilot. So I failed it. And they came back and said to me, are you a total asshole or what? You put down flight? I said, yeah, I did. So
That's like you going for Miss America.
yeah, exactly. There wasn't a chance, unless they like hairy chests. So, so that was that. But no, Micah's point. You know, there's. Are you going to serve your country? And if you do, are you serving it for the right reason? Because unfortunately, I think that there have been a lot of wars where our young people were cannon fodder. My take on it would be that the old men start the wars, the young men fight it. And I would rather have it the other way around. You see, I think you shouldn't be allowed to be a combatant unless you're over the age of 70, because then you don't give a shit anyway.
Right.
You know, so let's not kill our young people.
To further that point, you know, I was my both my grandfathers served in World War II. One was in the Pacific with MacArthur, and the other one was, I believe, in Europe. And my mother's father was a radio technician on bombers. So he had to be the radio guy. And they didn't bring those guys. A lot of those guys didn't come back.
Was it 10 missions? I think 10 missions.
I think
was
you only
the
lived
average
10 and then you
before
were
they
done.
died, before they died. And they had to fly 20
Yeah,
to come back.
to come home. And my mother told me a story about my uncle, that he was on the draft. He was going to get drafted. And my grandfather, you know, hell or high water, turned over every rock, called in every favor, did everything he could to make sure that he didn't go. And I don't think, you know, everyone talks about, you know, sacrifices and whatever, but, you know, my uncle never he never wanted to go there. It was other people's fighting. What were they fighting against? They were fighting proxy wars against communism. You know, the same shit that, you know, where you're not going to have free thought, and half your shit's going to go to us if you make half your shit. You know, we only have one size shoe here because it's easier to make that. We only have one car, one type of car. Everyone's going to drive that car. That's why you watch videos of Chernobyl and you're like, oh, everyone's driving the same car. You know? And you got to realize that a lot of the times the media, the newspapers, the TV, they're bullshitting you. They're telling you one thing, and it's not true. And it doesn't take, and the thing is like, this is the thing that really kills me, is like going back to the education thing. Make them dumb for generations. If you make them dumb for generations, they won't argue with it, and they'll just turn over real easy.
Yeah, because they can rule over you, right?
You know, the scariest
There
thing.
you go. You got
That's
it.
what they want. That's what they want.
The
And
haves and the have-nots.
the haves and the have-nothings.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it is. Like everybody's got to wake up, and you got to go, hey man, this isn't a race thing. This is a not even a race thing. That, you know, it's not a cop thing. It's not a Democrat Republican thing. Like, you know, think about this virus. Virus don't give a shit what political party you are. You know, and we're being told by Democrats, hey, you're killing us. No, we're not. You know, it's this mantra, this weird fucking thing that like I didn't realize until I got out of the bubble. And I was like, man, this is a little crazy. You know, I love everybody. And they're telling me to not love everybody.
And it's being driven by the extremes on both
sides.
The right and the left, and they probably make up less than 1% of the entire population because everybody else wants what's right for their families, what's right for everybody else. They're kind people. This is a very, very kind nation.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Greg. I was with a guy last night. He did 26,000 miles in South America on foot. Walked the entire continent.
Whoa.
He goes, I never met one person that didn't offer me something. I never met somebody who wouldn't say, you can sleep here tonight, you can break bread with us, you can have our food, you can drink our wine. He goes, everybody, not one out of everywhere I went, out of every night I slept. I find that hard to believe that this country doesn't do that. I find it very hard to believe.
During the
I love you, dude. We'll cuddle if it's cold.
During the pandemic, I saw that even like in Scranton. I was part of like a group that gave food away. Every 2 weeks we gave food to like 1,500 families. And
Wow.
I'm not talking about like $200 worth of food. I'm talking about like $500 to $600.
But it's also about what you're doing when nobody's looking.
Yeah. So
You know?
there are people like I met a lot of people that gave. So yeah, no, we have it in this country.
I think at the end of the day, those people are out there. They're out there and they're around here. The problem is don't listen to the people that are telling you that they don't exist.
Yeah.
And right now, I feel like that's a story that's being told, and that's kind of that's what we're being spoon fed. And
That's right.
at the end of the day, if you stop listening to the bullshit and look around you, this place is a lot better than we're being told it is. And our country, our world, our city, it's a lot better than we're being told it is.
The video that we watched earlier.
The porno or the Richard Dreyfuss thing? They weren't here when you and I watched the porno. Yeah.
The Dreyfuss thing. One of the things that he talked about too, he's like, if you start teaching people not to question.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's kind of like what you're doing, right? You're teaching us not to question. You just say, hey, yep, go.
And here's I'm sorry if I cut you off, but I'm right where you are. But here's the other thing. They're trying to reinvent history. They're trying this whole woke idea.
It's dangerous, man.
This is the most dangerous thing in the world because once they erase the history, then they can create their own. And when they create their own, they create control. If you do not teach the children the history,
The good, bad, and the ugly.
we are done as a nation. And you're this close. For those who are not seeing this, I am probably defining a quarter of an inch. You're this close.
Until the lion learns to write, the story would always glorify the hunter.
Ah,
African wisdom.
he who wins gets to write the history.
He wasn't even here last week.
Huh? Well, that's because he's really, really smart or we are too.
Hey, well, I don't know if you know this or not, but it's his birthday.
Is today your birthday?
It was like
Happy
the other day,
birthday
right?
to
Yeah.
me.
So we're going, so we had a full day today. We went and raced cars this morning.
Let's end this on like let's do something fun.
We went and raced cars this morning. So it was a ton of fun.
Up in Pocono, right?
Pocono, Motor Speedway.
road track.
Yeah, on the road track. And then we're all going out to dinner, and all the girls are going to be waiting on us. So we got to go get cleaned up and pretty.
Wait, what do you mean the girls are waiting on you?
My wife and
Are you going anywhere? You don't have to tell where you're going, but you're going to a place?
yeah, we're going out to a restaurant
Oh,
to have dinner.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
Show up and have a cigar.
Yeah.
That's the name of the
Is
place.
there
We're
cigars?
going to go down to the club afterwards.
Acha,
Oh.
show up
Where,
and
down
have
in
a cigar.
Greenwich?
At the club?
Scranton
Now
Club.
you're a friend
Oh,
of mine.
yeah, let's go.
Yeah. I'll text you when
What
we're going to
time?
be going down there. We're having dinner at 6, so we'll probably be down there like 7:30.
This is beautiful, guys.
You wanna come down?
Show up after
This
dinner
is
because we
beautiful.
ain't buying. But
Yeah, we're not paying for anything.
I'll buy you a cigar after dinner.
If
7
I-
o'clock.
If I can, Greg, I wish we had more time, but
A lot of fun.
But
Yeah.
family is way more important than podcasts.
Well,
That's it.
And
so's my damn birthday.
I know. Well,
Right
you're
there.
more
Thank
important
you.
right now than podcasts.
Would you believe
Would you
it?
come back?
38 years old.
38.
Yeah.
Good for you, man.
It's just the body that's shot to.
I look at, man. I was heavier. I lost 30 pounds during COVID. I'm like, man, Brad Pitt's underneath this fat suit. He's there. Don't talk about Fight Club. All right, everybody have fun.
Yep.
Did we learn something?
Great
Yeah.
time.
Good stuff.
Great time.
What a week.
What a week.
What a week.
Motherfucker. All right,
What a
take
fucker.
it easy.
What a blast.